Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and apologies for the sound outside. Someone's doing something, but okay, this is a very special Doctor Who ranking to honour Terrance Dicks, who sadly passed away. And although I'm recording this between my reviews of Frontios and Resurrection of the Daleks, I'll be doing that and Plans for Fire later. Oh, thank goodness. This ranking should go up sometime before between the Five Doctors and Warriors of the Deep. So maybe just before, just after the season 20 ranking. You'll know the answer when it comes up. But this is a very special ranking to honour Terrance Dicks, who sadly passed away on August 29th, with the news coming out on August 2nd. Yeah, and my Five Doctors review and season 20 rankings have been dedicated to him. And so I've decided to actually do a ranking of his 6 Doctor Who stories that he did not script edit. This is his 6 televised stories that he wrote, not served as a script editor, because we'll be here for the entire, well, not only the entire Jon Pertwee here, but plus a few more. But all the ones he wrote himself, or co-wrote, or wrote and then got rewritten, but still the story's sort of his. So we'll take a look at those the 6. Before we start, I just want to point out that he also apparently wrote episodes 4 and 5 of The Dominators. Out of, at the time, it was originally 6 before they decided to cut it down to 5 episodes. So I don't know if he wrote the last 2 episodes of that. Suffice to say, I don't think he helped with that story, but maybe he made it less worse than it could have been. Can't quite be certain. And also episodes 3 to 6, the final 4 episodes of The Seeds of Death. Not The Seeds of Doom, The Seeds of Death, as the writers didn't think, the producers didn't think that Brian Hales' finale was quite epic enough. So Dicks, who was script editor by that point, was brought in to write the final 4 episodes. I think he did a good job there. Hopefully he collaborated with Brian Hales. Poor Brian Hales, he can't seem to catch a break at all, really. But then after that, he was the script editor for the late Troughton era and for Jon Pertwee's era, before handing over to Robert Holmes, who took over with Robot, which coincidentally is Terrance Dicks' first first story not as a script editor. And his first story that he did write, or co-write with Malcolm Hulke, was The War Games, the season 6 finale. After that, he wrote season 12's opener, Robot. Then he came back he wrote a vampire story for season 15. However, due to Dracula, that story was pushed back, and he wrote Horror of Fang Rock to replace that. Then the vampire story was reused later on. So Horror of Fang Rock was season 15, the opener as well for that season. And then he came back for a season 18 story, which was his vampire story, rewritten to fit in as part of the Space Trilogy. That story became State of Decay. And then finally, we have the 20th anniversary special, The Five Doctors. Plus, he also technically wrote The Brain of Morbius, which aired in season 13, but Robert Holmes sort of rewrote that story, and Dicks wasn't happy about that, so he asked Robert Holmes to put a pseudonym on the story, and Holmes decided Robert Bland, as Terrance Dicks had said, put something bland and boring on as the name, and Dicks had put Robin Bland in. So, yeah, so those are the 6 stories we're looking at. The War Games, Robot, The Brain of Morbius, Horror of Fang Rock, State of Decay, and The Five Doctors. So, let's get down with the Terrance Dicks ranking. In my personal least favourite to favourite Terrance Dicks written or co-written stories, discluding The Dominators episodes 4 and 5, and The Seeds of Death episodes 3 to 6. Also discluding any story he script edited, unless he actually wrote those stories, which in the War Games case does count. So, starting with number 6. Now, number 6 is actually the first story he wrote after he finished script editing duties. And, you've written a good episode when you say your weakest story is one of the better classic post-regeneration stories. One of the top 3 classic post-regeneration stories. Top 3, better 3, I should say. From season 12, Robot! trying to do a Peter Capaldi impression there, as seen in Robots of Sherwood. But yeah, as I was saying, Robot is one of the top 3 better classic Who post-regeneration stories. I mean, you've got Power of the Daleks, Spearhead from Space, which Terence script edited, Robot, which he wrote, Castrovalva, The Twin Dilemma, and Time in the Rani. I think it's fair to say that the first 3 are the stronger 3, with Spearhead taking the crown, and the other 3 are the weaker 3, with Castrovalva being the better of them. When I get to rewatching the other 2, I will decide which one's worse. At the moment, I think it's Time in the Rani, but I've been thinking about Twin Dilemma recently. I haven't even rewatched that one yet, and I'm worried that that one might actually be even worse. Lots of people would say that. But we'll see when we get past both of them. But certainly Robot is my least favourite of the first 3, but is still one of the stronger 3 of the 6 classic series ones. And also, I think it's also stronger than 3 of the 4 new series ones as well. And not the TV movie. I think that I still like the TV movie more. But certainly stronger than End of Time, Time of the Doctor, and especially Twice Upon a Time. So it's one of the top 4, top 5 overall, and certainly top 3 classic ones. So yeah, so you know you've done a good thing when your your weakest story is one of the better classic post-regeneration stories. And also a very good introduction for Tom Baker. Elizabeth Sladen is great as Sarah Jane Smith. Brigadier Alfred Stewart, played by Nicholas Courtney, is great. Harry Sullivan gets introduced here. Ian Master does a great job. Sergeant Benton gets promoted. And John Levine does a great job. And also got some good villains. The Robot's actually quite a good design. I like the King Kong angle, although I think we could add a bit more of that. And the sort of spy thriller angle is also really good. And I like how we start with the what's just happened with the regeneration, instead of jumping in straight into the story. We actually get the wrap-up of the regeneration, which it kind of helps that the person who script edited the final episode of Jon Pertwee would, and therefore the regeneration scene in that episode, would get to write the first scene for Tom Baker, and in fact the rest of the story. So we get that, and then we jump into the story. That's what Twin Dilemma should have done. They should have followed up the regeneration scene and then jumped into the story, rather than having a point. I know I haven't rewatched this one yet, but I know for a fact that it has a pointless scene at the start featuring the twins before we get to the TARDIS stuff, and then that scene doesn't really have much relevance to what actually happens to those twins later in the story. So Terence Dicks actually knows how to write a season and opening for a post-regeneration story. And Spearhead from Space did a similar scene to Twin Dilemma, but that one's case, and I can also praise Terence Dicks and Robert Holmes for that, because that one just jumped us straight into the plot, and then the Doctor turned up. So yeah, I might talk more about that with the Twin Dilemma review. I might talk more about post-regeneration opening scenes when we get to those. But certainly Robot is one of the ones that do it brilliantly, and the story from there goes on, and it's great. It's a great opener for Tom Baker. It's not one of the strongest Tom Baker stories, but it's certainly a very good opener for Tom Baker. I honestly think one of his best stories would be the next story, The Ark in Space, written by Robert Holmes. But I think Robot was a very good introduction to Doctor 4, and of course he would go on to do much better and worse stories after this point. So, great job, Terence Dicks. You opened the 4th Doctor on a very good note, and like I said, one of the stronger classic Who post-regeneration stories, and one of the top 5 post-regeneration stories of the entire show. Well, I think. Well, I guess it has to be, I suppose. If not, then it's probably 6 or 7. I'll let you know when we get to such a ranking. Anyway, moving on to number 5. Number 5 is his final final Doctor Who TV story that was in a season. Was a season story, as because 5 Doctors was a special. So this is his final season story, and it's of course his vampire story from season 18, State of Decay. And yeah, State of Decay is a good story. It was my favourite from season 18 for a while, but then I rewatched Keeper of Traken after rewatching State of Decay, and I thought State of Decay wasn't quite as good as I thought it was, but it was still good. And then Keeper Traken topped it. So Keeper Traken's topped State of Decay is my favourite season 18. However, State of Decay is still stronger than the rest of the season. It's a very good story with the Doctor and Romana still stuck in East Space, and they get to explore the planet where the vampires are now in charge. This vampire's taken charge of some Earth people and turned them into vampires, and they're kind of terrorizing the community. And Adric's stowed away, and he helps out, and K9 gets a bit to do. I don't think K9 gets as abused in this story that much. I think he does get a bit of sideline, a bit sidelined, but I don't think he gets as abused as other stories in this season. Thank you, Terence. And yeah, it's a very good story with the vampires. It's a very good story with the other characters. Thor and Romana are great together, and they're great working together. And yeah, it's a good story, and definitely put the most effort into this story of the E-Space trilogy, and for probably the most of the season. Most effort was probably put into this story, this and Keeper Traken, and possibly Logopolis. Although I did take Full Circle over Logopolis, but yeah. Anyway, State of Decay, a very good story, and yeah. And if it was aired in season 15, I think it probably would be about the same, minus K9, unless it was after Invisible Enemy, and with Romana instead of Leela. So it might, and no Adric. But some good stuff. Okay, moving on to number 4, which is his season 15 script that he had to write in a replacement for the vampire script having to be moved. And this is a really great gothic horror story. And of course it is Horror of Fang Rock from season 15. And this story also is kind of Robert Holmes' revenge on Terence Dicks for Terence Dicks commissioning him to write a story set in the Middle Ages, but with an alien. And Robert Holmes, of course, wrote The Time Warrior, which featured the Sontaran. And then when he was script editor, he got Terence Dicks as a replacement for his vampire story to write a gothic horror story set during the early 20th century at a south of England coast lighthouse, featuring an alien kind of terrorizing the citizens. So Holmes got his revenge on Dicks. However, Dicks then wrote in that the alien responsible, unless this was in the brief, that it was a Rutan, so maybe he was spiting Holmes back. Unless Holmes wrote into the brief, they had to introduce the Rutans. But yeah, this story introduces the Sontaran's enemies, the Rutans, which makes a lot of sense considering they're in this story at the other end of the season in the Invasion of Time. The Sontarans return, so this is really cool. And it's great not really knowing about the Rutans until later on. The gothic horror is really great, and the lighthouse crew, they're good characters. The people on the boat, they're also okay for what they serve. I mean, there's this one guy, he's actually quite good. This pompous Pratt, who's not very nice, but he gets a pretty gruesome death. Well, not too gruesome, of course. It's a U-rated story. And then there's his companion secretary, who's a screamer. I actually really like the bits where Leela slaps her just for screaming. And although her death is very silly, she's just standing there screaming. She seems to have moved from the position she was in the last shot she was in, and then the Rutan just kills her. I also have the issue that everybody dies in this story. Everybody dies, and this is a problem that Eric Saywood would go on to have, that pretty much everybody dies. Maybe 1 or 2 people get out, but everybody dies. So yeah, but on the whole, it's still really good, and the setting is also really great, and the set looks pretty cool. And for a last-minute replacement story, it was a really great one. And also, this is my favourite story of season 15. So, yeah, we're now into the really good stories of Terence Dicks. State of Decay was my second of season 18 and had been the first for a bit beforehand. And Robot, I think, comes halfway on my season 12 ranking. Or fourth or fifth. Third or fourth. I think third. So, yeah. And we're getting into the really great ones here with Terrance Dicks stories here, and Horror Fang Rock proves to be a great story. Number three is Dix's first story that he wrote properly, this time co-written with Malcolm Hulke, and wrapped up season 6 and the Patrick Charlton era on an epic level. This is probably still the biggest the biggest regeneration story, and one of the biggest season finales. Biggest. I don't know if I would say the most epic, but certainly the biggest. And this is The War Games from season 6. So yeah, The War Games. Wow, this is an epic story. Like I said, I don't know if it's the most epic finale or the most epic regeneration story, but it's certainly the biggest. Not by least by the fact that it's 10 episodes, but it's quite a big scale as well, and also very epic. I'm not the biggest fan of the first half, but the second half is certainly that's where it gets going. I actually like with the invasion. I was enjoying it so much that I not just watched the first half of the story in one sitting, but I actually decided I had enough time. I can actually watch the second half of the story in the same night instead of splitting up, like with Dalek's Master Plan. Or in some other shorter stories, like Marco Polo. But yeah, I was able to watch both the Invasion and War Games, 8 and 10 episode stories in one sitting. Well, sort of one sitting. Well, in the same night anyway. And yeah, and it was an experience, and it was amazing. It was awesome. Brilliant story, some brilliant side characters, great villains. Philip Maddox's second best performance. No, it is his best performance. It keeps alternating between this and Solon. It's either this or Solon that is his best performance. Let's put them on equal ground. This and Solon are Philip Maddox's best performances. The War Chief, and was it the Warlord? Might be the Warlord. I think it's the Warlord and Solon, Dr. Solon, are Philip Maddox's two best performances in Doctor Who. Although if that U-boat captain from Dad's Army popped up in an episode, I'd be screaming my head off with joy. Your name will also go on the list. What is it? Don't tell him, Nick. Nick! Oh, I love that character as well. Oh, if only they did a U-boat story featuring Philip Maddox, that would have been awesome. Okay, but back to War Games. Yeah, fantastic villain from Philip Maddox and a couple of other great villains as well. And some great characters, and also introduces the Time Lords, introduces Gallifrey, although not by name, that will go to the Time Warrior. And introduced the Time Lords are possibly at their best represented by being all-powerful gods, although they are dicks. They're following their laws, they're following their rules, and they're all powerful gods, which is something the later stories, even before Deadly Assassin, they sort of forgot about. I mean, they still have the power, but they're not treated as gods any time after War Games, apart from maybe when they're getting too big for themselves, such as in the Time War. But besides that, they're pretty much presented as gods. In only one story, which is something I think once Gallifrey gets reintroduced later, either in Chibnall's era or his successor, when Gallifrey comes back, once they've sorted that out after the events of Hellbent, the Time Lords need to go back to being how they are from the War Games, maybe with some of the political stuff from Deadly Assassin, and maybe some of the post-Time War scarring we've seen in the new series, but definitely need to go back to something like we saw in the War Games. Because that was brilliant. That was amazing. And, yeah, and it's still a pretty good story seeing them going from place to place. It does take them forever to kind of get through it. It takes 9 episodes. But it's still good for the most parts. And maybe it could have been cut down to 7 or 8. I know they had to merge a 4 and a 6-parter together. But I think they could have, maybe they could have saved some time by cutting the Space Pirates and having maybe 4 4-parters, or at least a 6-parter that was not not the Space Pirates. Maybe have a few 2-parters in there if you were able to. But yeah, but War Games is still a really great story, some really great stuff, and some brilliant, just absolutely brilliant writing, some brilliant characters, and just a lot of fun, and the biggest Doctor Who story pre-Trial of a Time Lord. This or Master Plan anyway. But Master Plan, they did go from place to place. Here they do go place to place, but it's relatively within this kept area of a zone that they fighting the battles, as well as the central command. Whilst in the Master Plan, they will travel through points in time and space, as opposed to just different areas of this one planet. Which is actually really cool, come to think of it. It's actually really cool that they go to different parts of this planet, but they're representing different war parts of Earth at different time periods. So that's cool. So, yeah, the War Games, brilliant. Number 2, this is another Time Lord related. In fact, the top 3 are Time Lord related. This one also sees Philip Maddock at his absolute best, possibly, the hero of War Games. And yeah, this is another great one. This one may be more put down for Robert Holmes, more than Terrance Dicks on the final product, script-wise. But I think Dicks needs to have a bit of credit here as well. He needs to get his share of the credit. And this is, of course, Season 13's The Brain of Morbius. Yeah, this is a brilliant gothic horror story, just like Horror Fang Rock. A Frankenstein-style story. Philip Maddock is back as one of his 2 best villains of all time. 2 of his 3 best, I should say, if you include Dad's Armies. And we've got Morbius, he's great. The Sisterhood are good. Yeah, I think they get better over the story. But nice introduction, and they get to be brought back in the new series. And also in Big Finisher before that. And yeah, they're very good. And Morbius is great. The 4th Doctor and Sarah kind of trying to stop Morbius and so on. That's all great stuff. The Sarah blind stuff does go on a bit too long, but it's okay. It's not getting in the way too much. It actually helps move the story along. Yeah, it's just a really good story. Again, like I said, I think Robert Holmes might be more, is probably more the one who we can give our thanks to for this, for what we got. But Terrance Dicks needs some credit as well for writing the original story. So thank you, Terrance. Thank you for giving us the original idea that Robert Holmes would then create. And also thank you for sort of inspiring him to use the name Robin Bland as the pseudonym. That's a very funny name. Okay, so Brain of Morbius, that was brilliant. But there's still one Terrance Dicks story that he wrote for on-screen better. Oh, I should also mention I'm not including the unofficial but licensed Doctor Who spin-off films like Shakedown or Mind Game. I'm not including those. These are proper Doctor Who TV stories. And number 1 is, of course, the 20th anniversary special from the end of season 20, The 5 Doctors. I've recently reviewed this story and included it in the ranking, so I try not to talk about it too much now, but I fucking love this story. I love the 5 Doctors. Terrance Dicks takes what he has from the Time Lords, from both his and Robert Holmes and other people's scripts, and he's just expanding the history, he's expanding the world, and he brings all 4 of the 5 Doctors, of course, with Tom Baker, in together. He managed to have a good excuse for Tom Baker, though. But he brings the other 4 Doctors in, and he just runs with it. He is fantastic. And it's a fantastic story. And yeah, I mean, the only really problems I have with it are the Daleks dialogue. I don't know if I can blame Terrance Dicks or Eric Saywood or John Nathan Turner for that. It's very Destiny of the Daleks style dialogue, and I can confirm Eric Saywood would get better at writing the Daleks in Resurrection. Some of the editing is a little bit clunky in a few places in both versions. And in the special edition version, it can drag a bit too much. And that's really about it. That's about it. 5 Doctors is near perfect. It's a brilliant story. I love the script. I love the story. I think that's my favourite part of this story is the plot. The plot is This is amazing. This is so good. It's so fun and enjoyable, and some great characters. And yeah, oh, it's so good. Ah, it's possibly my favourite Time Lord story of all time after Day of the Doctor, which also makes a lot of sense, as that's sort of got kind of a Dalek story, but if you don't count that, then Remembrance of the Daleks would be my favourite Dalek story. And then maybe this one, technically, because there's a Dalek in it, and then after that it's Bad Wolf, Parting of the Ways, which is probably my favourite season finale. And yeah, this story is just so epic. This is such a great story. It doesn't have to have the same scale as the War Games. It shouldn't, because the War Games is 4 hours and 10 minutes. Yeah, 4 hours and 10 minutes in total. This is only 90 or 100. So an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes for original and special editions, broadcast and special editions, respectively. But it's still epic in its own right, and really great and enjoyable, and has so many great characters, both allies and baddies. And it's just so fun, and it's great seeing 4 Doctors come together to fight the villain at the very end, and it's just so brilliant. This was the peak of Classic Who before the 25th anniversary special, but this was definitely the peak for Classic Who before Remembrance of the Daleks, and yeah, you can see why. And of course, it would be the peak of Doctor Who before that point as well, and then later stages along later on. But yeah, 5 Doctors, fan-bloody-tastic. I love it. So let's wrap up this ranking. So number 6 is A Robot, the first story for Tom Baker in season 12. Number 5 is season 18, State of Decay. Number 4 is season 15's opener, Horror of Fang Rock. Number 3 is the finale of season 6 and the swan song for Patrick Troughton's second Doctor, as well as companions Jamie and Zoe. And that story was co-written with Malcolm Hulke. Number 2 is the story that was later rewritten by Robert Holmes and used with the pseudonym of Robin Bland, The Brain of Morbius from season 13. And number 1 was the 20th anniversary special between seasons 20 and 21, The 5 Doctors, which was fucking awesome. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching. The season 20 ranking is not out. That'll be next. If it is out, then the next video should be Doctor Who Warriors of the Deep. That should be the next Doctor Who review. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel for it, and also episodes 3 to 6, the final 6 episodes of the season, or the final 4, so Dix was broad, Dix, hey, and of course, more, and of course, Brain and Morbius was aired in season 3. Put this back a little bit further. Put this back after talk about that. Okay, that's cool. And that is, I like how we start with the regeneration instead of jumping into the... And also, Spearhead from Space, that one jumped into... And Spearhead from Space did similar things to Twin Dynamics, but that scene actually helped jump into... but I think it's probably 5. Maybe even 4. But it's probably 5. I'll let you know when we get past Twice Upon it. I'll let you know when we do such a ranking, which will probably be the when we get round, also, I have to mention for the robot, it's a Victorian / early 20, as the earlier 20th, at a early 20th century set. And of Horror of Fang Rock from season 15. Okay, now go back to Horror of Fang Rock, if I hadn't included it. I hate burping. And also thank you for giving him the suggestion, sort of less, which makes a lot of sense. It's also David number 3 is season 6 and Patrick Troughton's swan song finale. The War Games, number 2, is the story that was